and start the recording. All right, welcome everybody to our Lunch and Learn series. And today we're going to talk about interface transactions. And exciting, on the second last slide, we just set up a YouTube channel. I know lots of people could not get to the videos. We have it stored in Microsoft Teams, and several clients, security doesn't allow them to get there. So we've recently set up a channel. The other 3 videos are out there. We threw it out there quickly in case people wanted to get to it. So unfortunately, it's not like they're trimmed videos or professionally done. They were just whatever Angela and I said at the time. And so you can go out there and get them from there, and the information will be at the end. So we're going to look at how we envision people doing interface transaction tracking inside TransIT, but there is setup steps involved. The first thing that you do is turn on the transaction type, and then you associate those types to interfaces. You make sure that task steps include the interface outcomes, and then you turn on transactions where they're appropriate in either workflow details or scenario steps. And then you add details to those outcomes to make it more clear which transaction you're talking about. Then to use them, when you create a round of testing, it automatically is going to create the interface testing dashboard for you. You then execute steps in the main dashboard that cause interface transactions to be generated. The interface team sees them and marks them complete. So when each of your domains was created, we sent you an organizational build spreadsheet, kind of like doing your core build of any table. We got spotty results back on the interface build from pretty much every single client. And I can understand that in a lot of cases you were implementing new systems and you hadn't had spec meetings yet, so you didn't know what transactions were being passed between which systems and when. And so I would say that every single client on this call needs to go and review their interface transactions to make sure that you have the correct interface transactions turned on. And if not, that you get with your interface team to update them. So to update the interface transactions, you go to Settings, Interface Transactions, and you just, like other org settings, select them. If it says unselect beside it, it means it's already been selected. The next step then is to turn on the actual interfaces. And 100% for sure, except for one client that I'm working on right now, very hard to get their interface transactions built out, I don't think any other client has this built out correctly. So the admin is also the only one who can do this. And so our recommendation is always that at least one person on your interface team be an admin, so that as new interfaces are added or as interfaces are changed, they can go in and update this information as necessary. The easiest way to add interface transactions is just to click the first icon there. These icons are all the way down the page, but regardless of which one you click, it's going to bring up the same window. So just to save yourself time and so that we don't get a whole bunch of issues logged, every time you bring up the window, it gives you the same page. Once you bring up the window, it looks like this, and you're going to fill in all of the information as appropriate. One of the things that was newer that we added a year or 2 ago was an interface name. So when we first added this functionality, we didn't realize that obviously your ADT feed from system A to system B would be a separate interface than your order feed from that same vendor to that same vendor. So the way to take care of that is with the interface name field. When you build out transactions, they just end up looking across the row like this. And so this is also the easiest way to see which interfaces you have built, because if you go to that first icon that I showed you and then go here, it'll list out every interface and every transaction that's sent across that interface. If you have got interface built here and you don't have the interface name field in, if this name here is blank, the easiest thing to do is just to delete them and start over. So then once you've turned on the interface transactions, lots of clients do upload the scripts instead of using our global content, or they've got a mix of global content and uploaded scripts. If you're using our global content, chances are that lots of the interface transactions are already in content. And so as soon as you fix your interface build, they'll start appearing in your test scripts. If, on the other hand, you uploaded your test scripts and you didn't use that interface transaction column in the interface or in the upload spreadsheet, then your tasks won't have interface outcomes associated to them. So the thing to do is to actually read through your script and look for things that you know are going to generate a transaction. So obviously signing orders generates an order message. Obviously resulting labs generates a result. Completing an exam sends a result. That completes an order status message, and then finalizing the report sends a result. So you have to know by area what's creating orders and what's creating results, and then you need to go in and update those specific tasks to add those interface transactions in. So in this case, I scrolled through my test script and I found that we were signing orders. And so now that I know that we're signing orders, I'm going to click the link to that task and have it take me just specifically to that task. I'm going to look for where that same step is in that task, click edit, and then I'm going to go in and fill in what interface message I think is going outbound there. Our recommendation really is that this is a joint project, so the interface team knows what transactions go from which system to which system and knows what filtering they put in place for you, but really it should be the person who creates the order set that adds into the outcome of the order set. Here are all the orders that were generated, and then it should be the ancillary areas that are responsible for those interfaces look through the orders that they've said are being generated and turn on interface transactions as appropriate. So here you have to click add here or it won't add the transaction, and once you've added it, you see it shows over here in the interface column. And then once you've turned it on, a powerful thing is if you've used workflows instead of uploads. So if you uploaded all of your test scripts into TransIT as opposed to either creating your content from scratch or using our global content, then probably your tasks have 10, sometimes 55 steps to a single task, and they are used for just one script and one script alone. If, on the other hand, you're using global content or you've created your own reusable workflows, by going into those workflows, those transactions will then show up. So you can see they're showing up here at the bottom, and then you can turn them on. So if 100% of the time, or even 50% of the time, an interface transaction is going to be generated, then we would recommend that you turn it on in that workflow. By turning it on in that workflow, when you click that green plus sign, it turns into a red X, and it goes blue like this, and then it gives you the ability later on to add details into it. So if you aren't using workflows in that way, if you've got your task, your ZZZ task that's 25 steps long that you went in and added the interface transaction to, then you would just go in here and manually turn it on when you're creating the test script. So again, it's the same green plus. You click it and it becomes the red circle with the white X. And at this point now in the scenario, you can see that there's a details field created. And so this is where you need collaboration between the analyst and the interface team to say, okay, what do I want you to put in there to make it easy for me to identify this transaction? In this case, it's an order message going, so my recommendation would be maybe patient name, MRN, FIN, and probably order, and then the orders that are being passed at that time. So in this case here, you can see that I filled in details using the header scenarios or the scenario details that we talked about in one of the previous Lunch and Learns. So it's going to pull that information right in from the header. And so I've done a combination of both here. So I've got the patient name that I'm pulling in from the header, and then the orders isn't something that in this test script are in the header. So what I literally did was I went here and cut and paste them from here and plopped them in here, so that the interface analyst will know they're getting an order message for this patient name. It probably would have been good if I'd put in the MRN or the FIN too, but they're expecting all of these orders to come across. So that step makes your test scripts look longer in the scenario steps view, but it makes them much more functional from an integration testing perspective. I know that most sites, the interface team doesn't have a clue how many interface transactions they're expecting, whether they're ADTs or orders or results or whatever they may be. So they don't know until you tell them from the testing that something didn't make it, because they don't know what they're expecting. And so this is giving them a denominator to count from. All right, so then the next thing is to create a round of testing. And I'm not sure if anyone has always been aware or not been aware, but there's always been an interface dashboard. And when we switch to the icons, it's this second icon here. And every time you create a testing dashboard for a round of testing, it always creates this interface dashboard as well. If you don't have any interface transactions turned on, then nothing will be in that dashboard. If, on the other hand, you do, all of the interface transactions that you created will show here. The idea being, and I think everybody knows, Make Solutions is very focused on workflow-based testing to make sure that there's more successful go-lives. And so in the real world, when you add an ADT transaction, 30 people don't immediately go and run and look in a downstream system to see if it was received. They don't check every field in that transaction to see if they were received. That really is part of your functional testing of the interface. So in integration testing, what you're wanting to do is take those transactions off of the dashboard so they don't interrupt the clinical workflow and move them somewhere so that the interface team can manage them. So this is our solution for that. So in here you can see that this, in our demo domain, we have only 3 interfaces set up, and they're not really expecting that many transactions across this round of testing. You also can view it by scenario or by transaction if you wanted to, and this is just the dashboard. Then if you want to actually go in and mark pass and fail on transactions, you're going to click that test interfaces link, and it's going to take you inside to the interface testing area. And so you'll see that it's very much like the other dashboard, that's got the same icons that you use for passing and failing tasks. I will say that in a regular round of integration testing, there are thousands of interface transactions generated. And so typically speaking, I wouldn't say that we've got interface analysts going out here and clicking one by one to say that the transactions were received. But this is a really great place for them to go if they found out that a ADT A04 didn't get somewhere. They have the ability to go in and filter to that interface and see if other ADT A04s have made it across that interface, or filter to ADT A04s and see if the registration transactions are failing everywhere. So it gives them a little bit of insight into what they're expecting versus what they saw in the engine. And then as messages fail, it allows them to troubleshoot those instead of necessarily troubleshooting all of the thousands. Because again, like testing did, if you're expecting A01 through A08 on this interface, I'm expecting that you tested that in some functional round of testing. Okay, so again, it's the same kind of icons. So you mark them as flagged or as passed or whatever the case may be. And then when you do that, like the regular dashboard, it automatically updates. So this one went from being 0% complete to 25, and the last one from 0 to 17% complete. It wasn't really noticeable in what I was showing, but if a transaction in the interface dashboard is showing as pending, it means they haven't gotten to that piece in the clinical workflow yet for that transaction to be turned on, so to speak. So the interface team knows if you're falling behind just by looking at their dashboard and seeing that none of their transactions have been generated yet. So we're now at the point where I'm at my slide that I'm giving you the information of how to get to our YouTube channel. For whatever reason, if you Google if you go to YouTube and put in Make Solutions, it didn't seem to come up for me. But we have a CMIO roundtable that several clients participate in. If you key in CMIO roundtable, it'll come up instantly, and then you can just click on the Make Solutions icon down below. So we're hoping everyone will go out and join this channel, and I'll make sure that we post the videos there. And because I was so quick and finished in 15 minutes. I'm hoping that there's some people on the call who might actually have questions. And everybody was put on mute, so if you have a question, you'll have to, I think it's *6 to take yourself off mute. Okay, so it sounds like there's no questions. I really appreciate everyone joining. I am going to probably send this link out to the same distribution, so I don't expect that anybody actually had the time to copy it down. Thank you for attending today, everybody.